Good morning, everyone. I'm Anne-Marie Pham, and I'm very happy to be the moderator for the panel today. I think before we start, Javier would like to ask us to do something. So I'm going to ask Javier to please come up and say a few words.
So earlier today, I was mentioning, we tweeted a photo of this room completely empty. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to engage people beyond this room, beyond this community, beyond this country. I was showing some people earlier today that with only 44 tweets, we've been able to reach over 9,000 people. And we have an exposure right now over 30,000 impressions right now. So I think it's important for us to recognize that the world has changed. And this is an opportunity for us to be part of something that is bigger than us. So what I'm going to do is ask you to hold, and we're going to go wild for just 1 second. You don't have to say anything. Just put your hands up. What we're going to do is take a plano. We're going to tweet that. I'm going to see how far can we take this photo. So if you're okay, just give me 1 second. I'll tell you 1, 2, 3. Everybody, hands up. I'll do a plano, and then we'll go from there. Is that okay? Good.
Thank you, Javier. So there's lots of hashtags about the Globalfest Human Rights Forum, and go look for it. Actually, what is the hashtag? Do we have one that maybe you can announce?
So the hashtag is HRF Breakfast. It's just one word. Tweet it, and then we'll be able to track that. So if you can do that, will be great.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks very much. So check for the hashtag as well. Tweet, retweet, and help us to raise the awareness of the importance of having a multicultural workforce. My role here is just to start by setting the stage for the importance of having a multicultural workforce. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the federal and provincial regulations and the context for that. So on the global stage, as many of you know, Canada was really seen as a pioneer of multiculturalism. Actually, in 1971, Canada was the first country in the world to adopt multiculturalism as an official policy, and then it became a federal act in 1985. And by doing so, Canada affirmed the value and dignity of all Canadians, regardless of their racial and ethnic origins, their language, or their religious affiliation. So the multicultural policy also confirmed the rights of Aboriginal peoples and also the status of Canada's 2 official languages, French and English. What does that mean for us? Well, for Citizenship and Immigration Canada, they note that Canadian multiculturalism is fundamental to our belief that all citizens are equal. We have equal rights and responsibilities, regardless of our race and ethnicity. It also ensures that all citizens can keep their own identities and can take pride in their ancestries and have a sense of belonging. We don't need to lose a part of who we are when we come to Canada and when we become citizens. Like, I've been in Canada for 29 years, and I'm very proud that I'm very involved in my Vietnamese community and also in my Canadian culture. And both of these cultures enrich who I am, and I believe that it makes me a better person, and it makes Canada a better place. Acceptance gives Canadians a feeling of security and self-confidence, and it makes them more open to and accepting of diverse cultures. And it really encourages us as well to develop and learn respectful languages, develop common attitudes, build cross-cultural competencies, and understand the value of difference and be able to leverage that difference. It also recognizes that we need to all take an active part in our social, cultural, economic, and political affairs. And then let me talk to you a little bit about the Employment Equity Act. And this is an act that was passed in 1995. As we know, employment is critical to the successful integration of culturally diverse individuals to Canada. The purpose of the Employment Equity Act is to achieve equality in the workplace so that no person shall be denied employment, opportunities, or benefits for reasons that are not related to their ability or merit. So what that means is that the Act aims to correct disadvantages that some members of our community have experienced historically. And historically, the disadvantages have been experienced by 4 designated groups in Canada. And those are women, Aboriginal peoples, persons with disabilities, and members of visible minorities. And I know some of you may not understand visible minorities. And what that means basically is people who are non-white in color and non-Caucasian in race. So how do we do this? Well, one of the key principles of employment equity is to actually understand that by being equal, it doesn't mean that we treat people equally. It means that we have to look at special measures sometimes and the accommodation of differences. And that's where the difference lies between equality and equity. In order to be fair and provide hiring, retention, promotion practices that are inclusive and fair, sometimes that means that we have to look at different ways of doing things, being a little bit innovative, and finding ways to accommodate differences in order to hire the best talent. Okay? So how do we do that? For example, in hiring, when you hire somebody, do you always go through the same channels, i.e. your company website, maybe LinkedIn, or trade magazines? Or are you looking elsewhere? Are you reaching out to diverse populations? Are you going to where people congregate in their communities or where they worship and pray? Are your employees and family assistance programs, once they hire, a one-size-fits-all? Or do you have professional counselors who can support your employees and families and who understand how to support employees from different cultures? That's what employment equity is about. It's about understanding your pool of talent and finding innovative ways to hire and support that talent. The Act applies to federally regulated companies as well as provincial regulated companies that are federal contractors of the federal government. And so what that means is, as federal contractors, those companies sign a certificate of commitment to employment equity. And they too, along with the federally regulated companies, have to then develop an employment equity plan and report on those plans annually. So the Employment Equity Act is wonderful. But it really only applies to about 10% of the Canadian workforce. So there's still 90% of the workforce in Canada that's not under the Employment Equity Act. However, the Human Rights Act, which is both federal and provincial, and I know that we've got some folks from the Alberta Human Rights Commission here, does help us to support equal opportunity for individuals who may be victims of discriminatory practices. At the federal level, the Human Rights Act actually supports and identifies 11 prohibited grounds. And those are race, national and ethnic origin, color, religion, age, sex, sexual orientations, marital status, family status, disability, and a conviction for which a pardon has been granted or record suspended. Okay? And at the provincial level, there are actually 13 protected grounds, and they're very similar but a little bit different. Race, religious beliefs, color, gender, and that includes pregnancy and sexual harassment, physical disability, mental disability, ancestry, age, place of origin, marital status, source of income, family status, and sexual orientation. And we really need all of that because we want to create equal opportunities in employment or in the provision of goods and services for all of our community members. And that's why those acts exist, and that's why there are systems in place to support individuals who experience discrimination. So I'd like to pass it on to my next speaker, but before I do that, I'd like to ask you some questions and just think about that a little bit. As our populations in cities like Calgary are changing and becoming much more diverse, is the face of the workforce keeping pace with these changes? What is the business case for diversity from a demographic or economic standpoint? What is the business case for diversity from a social or community perspective? How do senior leaders or executives in companies view the importance of diversity and inclusion, and what is their business case? And what about our newcomers, and especially our youth? They are the cream of the crop, and they choose to make Canada their new home. Have we created the right environment, networks, systems, and laws to be inclusive societies where all segments of our community can thrive and find meaningful employment commensurate with their education, skills, and perspectives? Well, I hope that the panelists who are going to be speaking with you today are going to help to answer some of those questions. They've got great insights, great experiences, and I look forward to hearing from them. So we're going to start with Nicole Jelly. And Nicole is with the talent pool, and she's going to talk about the economic business case for diversity.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, and good morning to everyone. It is first and foremost a pleasure to see so many friendly faces in the room, and it tells me that, as always, we are united in the purpose of really fostering diversity. Before I start my remarks, I would just like to plant a seed. We're here to talk about the R.O.I. of multicultural diversity, but diversity is a much broader concept. And so from the perspective of the reality that I live every day within the talent pool, diversity is beyond simply the multiculturalism that really defines us as a nation and makes us a favored destination. I'm a firm believer in serendipity. It's always served me well in my life. And this morning, I don't know how many of you might have had the time to read the Globe and Mail, but there is a fascinating article, not long, and it is about Silicon Valley. And Javier is certainly going to talk more about it. But the title of the article is Apple's Cook Stresses Need to Make Workforce More Diverse. I really encourage you to look at this snapshot of reality that exists south of the border in Silicon Valley, and it is telling why we are so better off and what else we can do to not only continue to be, but increase our diverse multicultural base. So please do make the time. We've posted it on social media, and I hope you help make it go viral. Those of you that know me know that I love statistics, so please be prepared to be somewhat bored with some telling facts. You've heard Anne-Marie state the case of public policy, and to our public representatives in the room, thank you for being part of us today, because it really indicates your interest and your dedication. So let's take a step back. If I were to ask you in the room to raise your hand, how many of you are currently looking to hire, recruit, or will be in the next 60 days? Okay? So here are some wake-up calls. Our labor force nationally, and this is Conference Board of Canada stats from early in the year, is projected to grow between 20.5 million and 22.5 million employees, workers, by 2031. So whatever you're trying to do today, if you will be in the same position, by 2031, that's 2.5 million people more that we will collectively need to recruit. So that usually keeps me awake at night. It's that simple. To add to that, 1 in 4 of us is projected to be 55 years old or more. Now, Freedom 55 has gone by the wayside a long time ago, but there's still the dream of lotto. So, conceivably, we could be diminished that much further. But here is where diversity, multiculturalism comes into play. 1 in 3 in the labor force will be foreign-born. When I came 32 years ago to Canada to make it my country, I was among the exceptions. No more. So this is huge, just in absolute terms. Now, if we're looking to recruit, if we're looking for talent, and you heard Anne-Marie mention public policies, and we all know the changes that will be happening in January of 2015, we're not the only ones in this race. The BRIC countries are right in there with us. And the BRIC countries are much larger than we are. They're Brazil, they're India, they're China, there's Russia. And what they need are the people that we are training and developing, because it's the middle management ranks that are needed to bolster the economies of those countries. So we need to recruit. They need to recruit. Their students are right now in our institutions. And again, the Globe and Mail this morning announced that universities in Ontario have now lowered their entry standards requirements in order to bolster the entry of foreign students. So the tsunami is about to hit. But what can we do to retain this talent that we will be educating, developing, teaching, and training? So to compound these facts, those of you in the petroleum industry, in the oil and gas industry, in the energy sector, I don't need to tell you your needs. You know them. They're massive. The numbers fluctuate between 15,000 and 69,000 workers by next year, depending on where we go with pipelines.